this is Rebecca Rose, the voice of Mai Shiranui from Street Fighter 6 and Fatal Fury, and you're listening to Podcasts Across Worlds, Hawaii's #1 podcast for anime and manga.
Aloha, everybody. We like to read a lot of manga, watch a lot of anime, and talk about it for hours. I'm your host, Lehua Superfina, and today we have a very special guest. She has made an amazing moment in 2025. We have here Rebecca, the voice of Mai Shiranui. We are super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being on Podcasts Across Worlds. Paul, how are you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I was just smiling more and more while you were giving that introduction. I just think it's so lovely and it's so good to be here.
So I want to just start out on how's your day? What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's just like today was one of those low-key days. You know how it can be, especially if you're working in our industries, or if you're doing social media or just things that are very audition based. You'll have a lot of things happening all at once, and then you'll have times where nothing's happening. So it's kind of I'm riding that wave. And today was very low key, to be honest. I was pretty chilled out. So this is a nice break from the monotony, let's say. How was your day?
My day's been pretty good. I actually have like a day job. So I start like at 7 a.m. in the morning, but I actually wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning because I get paranoid that I'm getting some like emails from people from all over
Yeah.
the world. Because when you're in Hawaii Standard Time, everybody else is either way far ahead or way
hmm
behind. So it's like
hmm
you gotta balance that.
Yeah. No, I heard, well, I don't know if your listeners are aware. I was on Mekel Kasanova's podcast previously, and he also mentioned waking up super early in the morning. And I also wondered, like, I wonder if Lehua also wakes up very early. So you guys are kind of matching that schedule.
Yes, I actually started waking up early before him.
Uh-huh.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And then there'll be days where I wake up before him and I'm like waiting for him to like wake up and I don't hear his alarm. I'm like, to wake him up or not to wake him up? And
Yeah.
that is the question because I
Right.
have been on the other end of a very cranky person before. And it's
hmm
like, what should we do?
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting the behind the scenes. Everything, like I heard everything Mikhail Casanova said first, and now we're like, let's corroborate that here. Let's see.
But yeah, he's like super on it. I'm really jealous because I've been taking yoga since I want to say January.
hmm
Starting in January, I started taking yoga. It started out as a whim, and I ended up loving it. Like
Yeah.
I need it. And their classes, the earliest one they have is at 5:30, but I start work at 7, so it's like, man,
It's
I wish
right
I could
there.
start early like Mikkel. Like that would
Yeah.
be amazing. However, I do take the later classes, like the 6 to 7 o'clock ones. It's like, okay, I'll take that.
For the ordinary person, I feel like 6, 7 a.m. is already something to be like, wow, I did it. I made it at that hour. But you're aiming even higher and above. That's very, very cool.
No, for sure. So we've been talking about what I do kind of off work, off the clock. What do you like to do?
Off the clock. It's funny. I just feel like everything kind of blends together, right? Because the work that I do has, it's kind of grown out of just what I love doing already, right? So, yeah, I don't know if there's a very clear distinction between working and not working. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a bad thing. But I love to read. I'm always watching new shows or movies. I have this huge list of films that I want to get through just because I'm studying them, or like there's specific actors that I want to examine. How they perform on camera, and it's just always I'm always thinking about that, right? How to analyze that. Um, and then I also love to cook. I love to bake. I try to bake more, but I'm not the best baker. I am a firm believer. I don't know if you believe in this. I believe that whenever you bake, kind of some of your emotion goes into that, right? So if you're like a stress baker, sometimes it doesn't turn out that great, right? So I would say I'm closer to a stress baker. So this is why I always say to people like, I love to bake, but I don't know if I'm good at it. So that's one thing I do on my off time. I don't know, like I used to do a lot of yoga. I try to pick that up again. That's something I do appreciate because it really kind of centers you, mind and body. Um, Honestly, yeah. So if you know what my work is, that's kind of what I'm doing on my off time too. That's for fun. Yeah.
I grew up growing up with
Hmm.
bakers in my
Mm.
family. So whenever there's like family get-togethers, especially Thanksgiving, we started out with like a grandma or auntie that specialized in certain desserts. And then those
Mm.
recipes got passed down. And those recipes got passed down. And then I had a brother who wanted to be the cupcake man. And
Oh.
so because we have someone who's really good at making cheesecakes, someone that's really good at making
Yes.
pies.
Yeah.
So he was like, I want to be the cupcake guy. And so he just studied extensively on it. And we would be like the taste testers. And there's this one time where he's like, you try. I was like, okay. He's like, pick a recipe. And I picked tiramisu. I was like, I love
Oh.
tiramisu. That's amazing. I tried to follow it. It came out horrible. And now that you just mentioned about the stress baking, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what happened because I felt pressured to make
Exactly.
this a great cake.
Yes, that is so true. It happened recently. I was trying to make lemon squares. I don't know what went wrong, but my crust came out rock hard. It was so hard, and I don't know. I honestly don't know how I did that. So this is why I just think like, okay, all my stress, all my anger went into that crust. You gotta eat it. Even if it's hard, you gotta eat it. But anyway, that's I do have that theory about baking. Tiramisu, speaking of tiramisu, um, I really love tiramisu, but there was this cafe in Korea that used to sell tiramisu and it was really good. And it was never like a tiramisu I had ever tried. And it turned out that that was a branch from one of, if not the best tiramisu spot in, I think it's in Rome. There was a family-owned tiramisu bakery in Rome, and then that was their first branch they ever made outside the country. Um, and it's so different. Like that tiramisu was so different than any other kind of tiramisu I'd had. So it definitely tiramisu is not an easy dessert to start with. Let's just say.
No, because it's like it can be like spongy, it can be fluffy, and then there's the cream part. There's different types of creams, and
Yeah,
it's like I'm like,
there's a
why
lot
did I
going
pick
on.
that my first cake to make?
Right.
I was ambitious.
Yeah, definitely. If it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, well, we all know.
Yeah, and we know
Yeah,
why. Like she must have
exactly.
been stressed. Something was going on.
Exactly. It must be nice to have a family full of bakers, though, especially if you're the tester. That is not a bad job to have.
No, it wasn't. It was a great time. So with the tiramisu that you had, what made it so good for you?
Oh,
I'm
that
curious about
tiramisu?
that. Yeah.
I don't know. It was so light. Like it was very light and not too sweet. I think, um, like it's kind of a joke, I guess you say. Like if an Asian says this dessert is not too sweet, then that means we're saying it's good. So you don't want it to be too thick. You don't want it to be too sweet. So it was really nice, just very light-handed. So I still think about that tiramisu from now and then. I've never tried it, but that is the new standard. That tiramisu.
Dang.
Yeah, it's so good.
I remember when they were learning how to be the best cupcake person. They're like, you know what? The cake can be horrible. It's the whipped cream. If the whipped cream is great, it saves it. I'm like, really?
Hmm.
Ever since then, I've been analyzing whipped creams on cakes. Like I taste the cake, I'm like,
Hmm.
all right, it's okay. And then I taste the icing, the whipped cream, whatever the topping was. I'm like, nope, done. Nope. I get it now. I know why the icing would save it.
It's true. It's absolutely true. That's the difference between baking and cooking, right? Because cooking, as long as you got the idea of what's going on and you have the touch, okay, you don't need to know the exact everything. But when you're baking, that has to be so precise. And even the smallest change, like the cream on top, it can make it or break it. So that's
Yes.
definitely. Would you say you're a better baker or cook?
I would say cook. Like
Mm-hmm.
if it's baking, I have to do the pre-mix ones where I'm like, okay, all I have to do is add water. I can do that.
Yeah, good. Right. Once in a while, you need to do that to boost your confidence, right? I can do this. Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, pancakes. I'm okay with pancakes. I could do pancakes, but when I had one where all I had to do was add water, I was super excited. I was like, yay, I don't have to like mix it super precisely. However, there is the mochi pancake mix. That
Mm,
one, I'm like, whatever it needs, I'll do it because they are amazing.
that
You don't
sounds
need to
good.
add syrup. It is sweet on its own.
Yeah.
And we recently added like regular pancake mix to like kind of stretch it out,
Oh,
like so we
yeah.
can have that mix longer. That's how good it is.
That sounds amazing. I would love to. There's this really good pancake shop somewhere in Tokyo. I saw it on Instagram. There's somebody I follow. He visits all of these locations and restaurants and it looks amazing. But they have like these very thick, roundy, small pancakes. And just you saying that right now, how you were describing it, just made me think about that. I would love to go and try. Have you ever traveled to anywhere outside of the US?
I have been fortunate enough when I was a junior in high school. I think I
Hmm.
was a junior. We took a trip to Japan and we went
Oh,
all over. And this
yeah.
was a teacher that coordinated all this. She travels every year. It's someplace different. It's usually Europe, and this time it was Japan. And a
Hmm.
group of my friends and I we were super into anime and manga. We're like, yes, we have to do this.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was also taking Japanese classes. I
Nice.
remember I was there, and of all places, my classmates wanted to go to McDonald's, and they were like, "Where's the McDonald's?" And they're like, go ask." And I went up to a shopkeeper, and I was like, "Makdo narudo,
Yeah.
doko desu ka?"
Uh-huh.
I even added the wa, and they were like, "She said wa." I was like, "Sorry, yes, we want to know where it is."
Uh-huh.
But I loved it. It was amazing because we went to like different places. We started in the Tokyo area and then we took
Mm.
the bullet trains, we took a tour bus, and we went all the way to a place that was in snow. And it was my first
Oh.
exposure to snow too. And we
Oh,
went to like this
really?
place that had like a waterfall and hot springs. And I
Yeah.
saw a monkey outside of a zoo for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I really liked it. I loved the food too. And I loved the atmosphere of how all the different places we went to were so unique.
Mm.
Like in Tokyo, it reminded me of New York, Times Square with all the lights all
Mm, mm,
around.
mm.
And I thought it was amazing that they had shopping centers underground where like
Mm.
the trains and subways were. I was like, this is so gnarly.
Yeah. I
And
love those
then
underground shopping centers. That's something that I really miss. Well, I guess in New York, I guess I feel like I've seen it maybe once or twice here, but it's not as common, right? I would see that all the time in Asia. That I think that's a really nice touch.
it is. It's so convenient. And I don't know how long we could stay down there shopping. We were just so fascinated by going to all like different shops because it
Mm-hmm.
did feel different from Hawaii, like for sure.
Mm.
And then the different areas, like we even went to like rural areas where like the homes look like the original architecture too, with like
Mm-hmm.
narrow hallways. And then it looked like it was surrounded by farms. And we're like, whoa, this is so cool.
That's awesome. You really got to get the whole experience. You traveled all over the place.
Yeah, we did. And to this day, I still have all of like the pamphlets I collected at each
Oh, I
area.
love
It's like in like
that.
a suitcase. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
remember where I went, but I have the evidence here.
Right. I was here. Yes. That's awesome.
Yeah, and other than that, the furthest I've been from Hawaii, like that's in the US country, was all the way to the East Coast, New
Hmm.
York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never
Yeah.
been Rhode Island, but I know New York and New Jersey. What did you think? What were your thoughts?
So, New York, it's hot. It's humid.
Mm. You
The
came in
most,
summertime.
yeah, I always went during the summertime. And I was like, oh, this is okay. It's very city-like.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, it's all right. However, when I went to Rhode Island, which was my destination, so I flew to New York because there wasn't a plane from Hawaii that landed in Rhode Island. So I went
Uh-huh.
to New York, got off, took a taxi to a train station or to the Amtrak, and then took that all the way to Rhode Island. And it was like totally different. I went from city to suburban area.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is very familiar. There's a lot of open spaces, a lot of small towns. It's like,
Mm.
I like this. I could live here. And then I'm thinking about the winter time, like, no, I'm not very good with snow. I'm
Yeah.
not there yet. Like 70 degrees is cold for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It can get really cold out here. I think that also, I mean, it surprised me because it can get super hot as well, right? You have the whole spectrum, all the weather.
oh yeah, like I was in Rhode Island for just the summer, and I kid you not, I was the tannest I've ever been there
Right.
because
Uh-huh.
we were outside by the pool. We were at the pool a lot.
Yeah.
And it just felt so summer. I just wanted to stay outside most of the time, and it was so different because okay, you might laugh at this. There's like a forest nearby, and I just felt like I was in those fairy tale stories
Yeah.
where they like go exploring into the forest because our forests here, they're more like tropical forests.
Right, right.
So, yeah, it's not like those fantasy stories with like dragons and knights. It's like more like Moana or Tarzan.
Sure. Yeah. It's a totally different vibe, those kind of forests, right? Isn't it? It kind of gave you a little bit of a, well, maybe not as much as Twilight, those kind of deep woods, right?
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, Twilight has its own woody vibe going on as well. And then, yeah, I feel like you have like these pine forests, and you might imagine seeing like an elf coming out somewhere, or you would see druids written out on some stones. I totally know what you're talking about.
Yes, 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 you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know that when I was in middle school, I think I must have been around maybe sixth grade, seventh grade. I had a friend, and she and I used to go exploring in this forest nearby. And this is the power of imagination. Considering even just in middle school, we had everything mapped out. We would explore around this whole forest, and we had places labeled like this is, I don't remember exactly what we would call it, maybe like this is the forbidden glade, this is, the clearing of the druids, this is like the fairy clearing or something. I can't even remember all the names, but we had it all labeled out like on this map. And now I think back on it, it was so magical just kind of walking through there. And it's just us in our imagination. We would talk, you'd be like, oh my gosh, do you see that? Oh, do you see this? And I really loved that, like that when I think back at that time. I don't even remember. It must have been just like this really small forest with a lot of dirt. But in my mind, it was such a magical, wonderful place. And you could create all these stories and those kind of things. I think that was such a lovely time. Like when I think back on that, right? Just having that freedom to explore and to imagine. And that's probably something that you must love, is considering what your podcast is about and considering your hobbies. It's all about just imagination, all about creating these worlds in our minds. I don't think that's just a kids thing. That's something that we can still do today.
Oh, for sure. That's why we really like the isekai stories. That's
Mm.
why we're called Podcast Across Worlds. Isekai is because we really like that idea of either reincarnating, transmigrating, transported
Hmm.
to another world and just experiencing different types of perspectives. Like the first one was that time I got reincarnated as a slime. It's like a slime of all things.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where it's like a really common story, but it's so good where someone just gets transported and they end up being summoned and they're the hero and they're meant to save the world by
Yeah.
defeating the antagonist. And you're kind of doing world building too. You're learning about the different
Yes.
countries, the different cultures, the different species. And then there's just so many different stories where it's like the same blueprint, same
Mm,
foundation, but they're able to like tweak it to make it so unique. It's like they
right.
have a lot of explanation behind why creatures are evolving a certain way. What are the requirements
Mm.
and what is the history behind this kingdom? It's like it's amazing.
Even though there's story blueprints, I don't know what the exact number is, but I had heard that there's a limited form of story, like the direction the story can go. There's a certain limit to it. Kind of like with music, you have a limit to the range of notes that exist. Yet with inside that range, you can create so many new kinds of sounds. And I view that's the same way with stories. So even though if you might say like, oh, it's the same thing happening. She's going to a world. She's da da da. There's so much that can be done inside that to create something entirely new. This brings to mind a voice recording that I did last year. Do you know Manta Comics by any chance? Manta Comics?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
They have a great social media
Yes.
marketing. Like I see it all over and I'm like, hmm.
Yes, they're always up to something. They are always pushing out these awesome comics. They're so fun. But I recently voiced they they brought one of their podcasts or one of their comics to life through an audio podcast. And I had the pleasure of voicing the one, I've Become a True Villainess. So you may or may not have seen it. It came out last year. But it's similar to what you're talking about. She's a college student and then she gets reincarnated after an accident into a story that she has been reading. But instead of getting reincarnated as herself inside the story, she's becomes the villainess of the story. So she knows the ending of the book because she read it. She knows, oh, in the end, the villainess is going to die because of her villainy and her evil acts. So now that she's reincarnated at her, she's like, oh, I have a second chance to avoid getting killed. But then she's also fighting against the original body's nature of evil. So you have a lot of that tension. And as you can imagine, a whole lot of hijinks ensue. There's some really cute guys and there's a lot of fun. So that is, if you enjoy these kind of stories, that is a podcast I am totally biased talking about, but it's a great one. You should absolutely tune into it. I've become a true villainess.
I feel like I read that story. I
You might
love
have, yeah.
villainous stories.
Oh, okay,
Like
then
when
definitely.
I I don't care if it's like it seems simpler. I am rooting for the villainous, especially when they're having like a redeeming arc
Oh,
or it's someone like your character where they're transmigrated or reincarnated as a villainous and they just want to avoid that bad ending. They're like,
yeah.
I want a good ending. But for some reason, they have to go over these hurdles. There's like things that are not going the way they planned. They're like, this didn't happen in the story. This didn't happen in the game.
Yes.
Why are these characters doing things differently? What is going on? Or the female protagonist of the story ends up being
Oh my
Two-Faced, or there's like something
gosh.
twisted about her, and you're like,
I feel like you just gave away the whole podcast that I did. That's like the whole summary of it. Wow. But you know what? You're right. There are story blueprints. You got me. They're happening the exact same way. That's totally what happens. But I think it speaks to like us as a reader, we like to root for certain people, right? And
hmm
certain stories. And I think there is something to be said about like rooting for the villain getting a second chance. You have the villain, it's like, I know you're not all bad in there. I know you can change this, and you kind of want to see them come around, right? I don't know if that's an underdog story. I don't know what you would call that. But I feel like we have that inside us, right? Ah, I want to see you come to the good side or prove them wrong. You're justified in your evil, something like that.
Oh my God, that totally reminds me of when I was younger watching Sailor Moon.
I love
And
Sailor
I'm
Moon.
unsure which arc it was, but one of the villains was into Sailor Moon, Serena, and I was like, go for it, girl. Be with that bad guy. Like, you guys are matching so well together.
Yeah.
He's super into you. Tuxedo mask. He doesn't even remember you right now.
Yeah.
And ever since then, if there's ever like a villain obsessed with the female lead, I'm like
Hmm.
secretly rooting for them.
Oh my gosh.
I
That's so
think it
funny.
started there. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
well,
why.
maybe that's it too. I don't know if this is talking to the audience's psychology or yours. Yeah, Sailor Moon. Oh, that was an early introduction as well for me into like anime and a great voice acting as well. Like I still remember Serena's voice in my ear. It's just so distinct and so clear. So I that if we talk about voice acting, that is definitely an early example of something that impacted me because I remember thinking like, oh, this is so great, and like all the girls have their distinct voices and they're doing so many cool things. I always loved Sailor Moon. That is a great show.
Mm-hmm. And when Crystal came out, I was like, what? And
Crystal.
mm-hmm. Because Sailor Moon got rebooted. Uh yeah,
Oh.
so they made a new series and it was based off of the manga series.
Ah,
So when
okay.
people first saw it, they're like, wait, this doesn't look like Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
And even Mekel was asking me, it's like, why do they look different? And I showed him like pictures of like the
Mm.
manga. I was like, this is why it looks like it.
That's the original. I read that the author of Sailor Moon, she had created the stories because she just imagined like these are the kind of girls I would want to be friends with. Is that true? Did you hear about that? Like, I thought
Yes.
that was so sweet. And it makes perfect sense too, because these are the girls I would want to be friends with. That was kind of how I felt when I would watch these shows too.
For sure. They're like so loyal and they're so supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And literally thinking back on it, I did have friends like that, but I didn't realize how amazing they were until I
Mm.
became an adult and I'm in this working world and I'm like, these coworkers suck. They're not supporting me.
I hope you guys are tuning in.
And then I finally got into like an amazing workplace where
Mm.
everybody is pretty much on the same frequency of, okay, we are all working together. If you need
Mm-hmm.
help, let us know. If you're going through a trouble, a hiccup, let us know. Like, tell us what happened, tell us what you did, and what
Yeah.
we got to do moving forward. Like, it's
Yeah.
so solution and proactive oriented. I was like, this is amazing.
Mm.
And in Sailor Moon, they were pretty much like that.
Yeah. Every work. So basically, you're saying every office needs to look at Sailor Moon. They're going to give you the code. This is how to create a healthy work environment. You heard it here first, guys. You heard it here first.
Every workplace office, every school, every club scene, because you know, in that scene, you got to support each other. Every
Right.
rave scene, every traveling group, like you got to have a support system. You got to make sure that you got the power of love and friendship.
Exactly. Yes. And you should always look cute wherever you go. There you go. There you go.
Yes, with whatever power you got the moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus. Mine was Jupiter.
Oh, okay, Sailor Jupiter. That was your Sailor Jupiter. I always wanted to be Sailor Mars, but my older sister said she was Sailor Mars, and she said I had to be Sailor Mercury. And I was like, but you are good at computers and you're more nerdy than I am. But anyway, I always wanted like the long dark hair and the red. I thought that looked great, but I was always Sailor Mercury. No slam against Sailor Mercury. No slam at all. Now, as I'm older, I definitely appreciate her really cute haircut. But, as a kid, I always wanted like the really long, flowing black hair, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's not easy to pull off the short haircut.
It is
Like
not. It is surprisingly hard. Have you ever, like, what's the shortest you've ever cut your hair?
that I was aware of, the shortest I've ever had was like here.
Ooh, that's
And
pretty
the
short.
thing is, when my hair gets shorter, it gets curlier.
Right.
So it would get like, depending on the day and the atmosphere, the humidity, my hair would either get like really curly or just get like just poofy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It can really
so
change your face for sure.
yeah. And when I was younger, I wasn't really advised how to take care of my hair. So there's
Mm.
this one moment where we just chopped off my hair
Mm-hmm.
and they layered it and then they like fluffed it up and it looked amazing when it was wet or when there's gel in it. But when
Mm-hmm.
I was on my own after I washed my hair and it dried and it just poofed up, I'm like, what do I do with this? This is before I knew how to use a hair dryer. This is
Mm.
before I learned about straightening irons.
Mm.
And I ended up being called like Afro Lady,
Oh,
Fluffy,
fluffy.
Fluffy,
Uh-huh.
because my hair was like fluffy.
Yeah.
And there's like a point where I just didn't care because I went to an all-girls school. We were all wearing
Mm.
uniforms. Who am I going to impress? I didn't brush my hair. I was like, I'm just
Hmm.
over it.
That's something I always wished I could do. I know grass is always greener on the other side, but I had like pin straight hair. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get a curl, I couldn't get volume, I couldn't get any of this, lovely like feathering, whatever. And no matter what I did, there was nothing I could do. So I always wanted to be on the other side. Like I loved girls who had big hair. That was something I always admired, and I always would say like, "Oh man, if I had like big curly fluffy hair, I would never touch it. I would just leave it." Obviously, this is a opposite case situation, but you had the hair that I always admired. If I ever saw that, I would just be like, "That's right. That's the hair. That is the hair."
I know. I remember people telling me like, "Oh, I love your hair," and I'll be like, "I don't love it. People, I don't look like all the other girls because like
Mm.
majority of people here are Asian or part Asian, and so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of their hair is like straight
Mm-hmm.
or very silky looking. So I look very different from the rest of them, and I would like have hair envy. However, as I got older and as I learned how to style my hair, I was like, you know what? I really like my hair because
Yeah.
there's like a point where I styled a friend's hair who had like super straight flat hair, and it
Yeah.
was hard to style it. I was
Yes,
like,
it is.
I'm like curling it, and it's just like me. It's like,
Right.
what? And then I
Exactly.
was remembering like watching my friends' hairs go like tease and it looked painful. I was like, is why they tease it? Like,
Mm-hmm. It is painful. Yeah. This like backcombing stuff, I hate that. Honestly, you have amazing hair. That was what I saw when you first got on the screen. I was like, wow, look at her hair. I mean, I obviously still like have envy for, not envy in the case of like, I wish it was mine, but this real great appreciation for women with beautiful hair. And you have flowing locks. It looks amazing.
oh, thank you. I like how your hair is styled. I like how like nice your waves and curls are and like the
Thanks.
color of your hair. It looks like there's like a hint of brown and red in there. I was like, ooh.
Oh, you can see that. Yeah, I do have like these red, I don't know what it is. This is totally natural. I've never dyed my hair or anything. And I do have these kind of like reddish streaks in it, which you can see when there's more light going on. But now that we're talking about hair, I noticed this one this one random strand just doing its thing, just leaving it there.
Yeah, being a rebel, they're like, I'm just gonna do my own thing.
That's right. I just do my own thing. That's precisely it.
So you mentioned that you and your friends used to visualize in the forest and you had all these different scenarios. Was it because you guys used to read books a lot?
Oh, what a good question. I think that's absolutely true. We were both avid readers. And it's funny because I look back at it. I don't think most other students around us were. Like, we were kind of nerdy girls. Like, I think back at it, I'm like, yeah, we were a little bit weird ourselves. But I do think it has to do with like we loved to read and we would talk about books all the time. Still today, I love reading, and I think books are so central to just the way I view life and the way I think about things and how my own imagination and storytelling has developed. If you want to be a great storyteller, you have to be a great reader. If you want to be, I personally believe if you want to be a great actor because you're portraying story through your own movements and your voice and your expression, you have to love to read. You got to love stories. And the best way to do that is by reading. Yeah, so we absolutely, I've always grown up reading. I loved reading. And I definitely, now that you bring it up, yeah, my friend and I, we were both avid readers. That probably played a direct part to our sense of adventure and imagination.
That reminded me of during that time we were into Harry Potter and
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to the premiere days of the movies and we would dress up like we were
Oh,
going to Hogwarts. Like we had
yeah.
like this event where we were making our own cloaks. We got the material and we tried to sew it.
Yeah. I always wanted a gang of friends that I would go do that with. Seriously, I'm the biggest Potterhead in my family, almost to the point where it's kind of a joke, right? They'll buy me like Harry Potter calendars for or stickers or Harry Potter pouches, and I'm like, thank you guys, thank you. Secretly, of course, I really definitely appreciate it. But I don't have somebody who has this outward love of Harry Potter. I have loved Harry Potter since forever, so I think that's so cool that you did that. I would totally have joined you.
Oh yeah. And my friends were like way more into it than I was. Like they would
Mhm.
say, I'm in this house, and I'm like, I am a muggle.
Oh my God,
And I have wizard friends.
that's so funny. That's the way out. Yeah, I don't need any of this stuff. I'm a muggle.
I will live vicariously through you guys.
That's so good. Wait, do you still feel that way? Are you still like insistent you're a muggle? Not even a squib?
No, the Harry Potter game came out on the PlayStation on PC, and
Oh yeah.
I chose what house did I choose? Hufflepuff.
I was gonna say you strike me as Hufflepuff. Seriously. Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
good.
and I love the game. I need to go back into it, but my goal was to own a shop. I wanted to have a shop where the students would come in, buy things,
Yeah. I
get
haven't gotten that
freaked out
far
by
in the
my
game.
products.
Well, okay, would this be a shop in like Hogsmeade? Does Hogsmeade exist in that world? I can't remember.
It does. Yes, it
Okay.
was going to be in Hogsmeade.
Yeah. Nice. That is so fun. I do need to go back and play that game. I barely started. I was like exploring the castle, which was so cool, the way that they built all that up. Okay, so I mentioned I'm like really big Potterhead. So I went to London with my family for Christmas. I think it was 2018. And you know that they have the actual sets, like they still maintain many of the sets from the films over there in the studios. And you can go and do a studio tour and see everything. So you can walk through Diagon Alley. I think there's a little bit of Hogsmeade that exists, a bit like pieces of the Forbidden Forest. You can see Aragog, the spiders, the flying car. But the thing that really I still remember the most is when you're walking inside and you can see like the artwork or the little models, the 3D models of things, or the masks and costumes, and you walk through it, tick, 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 and you go around the corner, and there's a full, not like a full scale, but a model of the whole castle of Hogwarts right there. And it's like the lights are shining on it, and it's so beautiful, and it's very, very detailed. Just hearing you talk, like thinking about the game and walking around the castle, I remember when I saw that for the first time, it was actually breathtaking. Like I saw it and I was
Wow.
like, it was really amazing. I highly recommend it for anybody who's a fan of the films or the books. It was enchanting. That's probably the best way to say it.
Wow. Have you gone to a Harry Potter world that's like on the mainland, I think?
In
Yeah.
at Universal Studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, I did. And it was so cool. It was awesome. Yeah, that's where I got my Gryffindor scarf. I'm a
Oh.
Gryffindor. Can't you tell? Yeah. It's really cool. If you've never been, you should totally go.
I want to. There's like so many things at Universal Studios that they have. And
Hmm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Totally different from when I was younger. And we used to go to California and we would go to Universal
Mm.
Studios there. And they would have like the same rides until I was like 10 years old. That's when I stopped going. And I
Hmm.
was like, ah, okay. And then once they started adding like the different features, I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
they have upgraded. This is amazing.
They've done a lot of cool stuff. And it's not just on the mainland, like here in the US, but also in other countries. Like I know Hong Kong also opened up, I think, a Harry Potter world. And then in Tokyo Disney, they've got some really cool rides and experiences. I don't know if they have a Harry Potter section there. But just if you can't even make it to Florida, which I think is where it is, right? The Universal
Hmm.
Studios.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can find a lot of really cool spots around the world as well.
I have some friends that love going to Disneyland, and they were talking
Hmm.
about you gotta go to the Tokyo Disneyland.
Mm.
There, you gotta go around this time. They have different rates. It's so different. Da, da, da. And I was like, I can't really relate to this, but tell me more.
Yeah, it is very cool, I will say. I wasn't intending to go. My little sister was in Japan for a short visit, and so I was like, I'll fly over and see. I was in Korea at the time. And we just decided, we were like, you know what? We have free day. Let's just go. And it was definitely worth it. If you ever have the chance, like if you ever visit Japan again, it's definitely worth it.
So Disneyland is so big. Like,
Mm.
how do you plan things out? How much time do you need to fully experience it or enjoy and make sure that you don't leave with regrets?
Well, this is maybe a multifaceted question. I am no Disney World expert by any means, but I think there's two ways to look at it. There's either hit up as many rides and experiences as you can, or just soak it in, right? There's probably going to be one or the other. Um, yeah, when I go, I just have like a number of rides. Like I really want to hit this, I really want to hit this, I really want to hit this. The rest of it, I just want to see. I just want to be part of it. I want to hear the music. I especially love this when you go through certain sections of Disney. This is so funny. We're talking about Disney World. Like I literally haven't been in like forever. Um, but I love how they have the same music in certain sections of the park, right? Because if, for example, if I'm walking down the street like in Seoul, every shop is playing a different song at the outside. So you'll walk a couple feet or meters, the music will change. And so it could be a really disorienting experience. But in Disney, it's all unified, right? In this one whole street, main street, they have the same music playing. In this section of Agrabah, they have the same music playing, right? And I think that's a nice touch.
Ooh, so you feel like you're in that like atmosphere, you feel like you're
Yes.
in that world and it's like consistent too.
Yeah. Totally. I really love that. I used to think like, oh, I wish shops would do that in real life, right? Because if you have like a main shopping strip that everyone's walking down and you're just going in and out of shops, it would be so nice if we had like the music unified because it just creates a different vibe. You know what I mean? That would be impossible to happen. But it was a thought that I had when I was at Disney. Yeah.
So a lot of voice actors
Mm.
that I've met and talked to, they've all had experiences working in Disneyland. Have you ever wanted to do that?
Actually, I do think that is a common thing. Um, which is so funny. No, so I've never worked at Disney. I did think it would be kind of nice, but I always thought if I worked at Disney, I would like to be one of the princesses. And the competition is fierce. And additionally, I looked this up. You have to be within a certain, like a very specific height range. And I'm quite tall. So I think I'm outside that range. But yeah, I used to look up auditions and stuff. I'd be like, is Mulan available? Like which auditions can I go to? And I used to think about that, but no, I never went for it. But I did hear that's pretty common. I recently listened to a podcast about like the secrets of Disney, and that was mentioned in it. Yeah, that a lot of people before they break into acting or voice work actually worked at Disney. Yeah,
Oh, dang.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? It's like where the magic begins.
Yeah, and you're acting and you have to sound very similar to the character, and that's
Mhm.
not easy.
No, it's not. Yeah. There's a really cute actor who plays Peter Pan well. I don't know who he is, but I've seen a lot of his videos online, and I always think like, oh, wow, he really caught the spirit of Peter Pan well. It's really nice to see.
Oh, I like how you said that, the spirit of Peter Pan. Like he's
Yeah.
not him. He didn't nail it. He got the spirit, the heart, the
Yeah.
soul. He
That's
got it.
totally it. Yeah, he did great. There's definitely a lot of great character actors there for sure.
And then you did mention that you like to watch movies so you can like
Mm.
study people acting and such. Is there a type that you tend to like gravitate towards to like kind of try to replicate or figure out how
Oh.
they acted that way?
Those replicate. I don't think there's anything I'm watching to think like, oh, I want to replicate this. But, there's definitely, I think sometimes when an actor really captures the character or conveys the story incredibly well, that always stands out. That's what's going to be a standout scene in a film or show. And I like to watch for those moments. Like I like to be watching it, and then there's times where I'm just like going with it, enjoying the story, and then there's moments where it hits me. I'm like, whoa, that was awesome. Wow, she did an amazing monologue. Whoa, okay, there are little tension that crackled across the screen in that moment. That was excellent. And those are things that stand out to you if you're looking for it, right? And I also really love to pay attention to what the characters are actually saying because there's so many films and TV shows that I think actually have really bad writing in terms of dialogue. It might be an amazing story, it might be amazing character development, but if the dialogue is not natural, like you know what I mean? For example, you come on the scene and they're like, "Hey, Kelly, I'm so happy you came over today." Well, you know, I'm your sister. I come over every Saturday because you're you're setting the scene for the audience to understand who they are in relation instead of creating the dialogue so that you pick up on that, right? They just tell you directly. And I think a lot of shows and films are guilty of that because it's easy. So I like to watch films and shows and analyze the writing. Be like, oh, this was really good. Wow, they really led you the correct direction without feeding it to you. Because the audience is a lot more intelligent than we think. And I think a great example of this, I mean, everyone talks about it all the time, but Pulp Fiction. I don't know if you've seen Pulp Fiction, but to
Oh,
me,
dang, you're bringing back.
oh,
Jeez. Yeah, wow.
it's like so old, but I watched it like just a couple of months ago for the first time in my life. But I thought the writing was so good. It didn't tell you anything directly. You just picked up, you were just dropped in the middle of someone else's life and just went for the ride. And then by the end of it, you pieced it together like who's who, how are they connected, what's the relationship? And that was just the power of great writing. So I totally understand why people talk about why Pulp Fiction is so amazing. It's the dialogue. It's really incredible. That's just one example. But yeah, that was a long-winded way to say I enjoy watching movies.
So, do you also like to people watch?
Yeah, I think people watching is also really key to developing characters. Whether that's through voice or whether you're on screen or on stage, everybody has their own little mannerisms, right? So if you observe different people, sometimes I kind of put it somewhere in the back of my head. I'll watch somebody and I'll be like, wow, the way they are talking to their child, for example. Okay, I'm going to remember that when I'm portraying a character like you, I'm going to do that too. And I'll just put it in my head. I think people watching is such an interesting thing to do. Do you people watch?
I love people watching.
Yeah?
At first, I thought I was being nosy, and then I was like, because I was watching so intently, and I was like, kind of trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, once you start pulling out your binoculars, that's where the line is drawn.
And then I started getting very interested in why they were acting that way, why they were talking that way. And I
Mm.
found it interesting when people started doing, like you're saying, the habits. I was like, whoa, I didn't
Hmm.
notice that until now. That's really interesting. And then I would like wonder how long they keep up doing that.
Mm. Yeah. It's kind of like
And
the oh sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say like at first some of those habits like annoyed me, and then I was trying to figure out why. And I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind. This doesn't annoy me anymore. This is quite
Mm.
fascinating."
Yeah, it's all tied to motivations. I guess if you can understand where a person is coming from, it helps you understand why they're doing a certain action. That can be in positive ways and negative ways. For example, you fight with somebody at work and you're just like, you're so annoying. When you do this, it's so annoying. And then you figure out behind the scenes, like, okay, this is what's driving them to behave a certain way. You have a little bit of understanding. You're like, okay, it's annoying your action, but I see where you're coming from. And then you're able to you're able to have a little bit more compassion, right? Yeah, so motivations is just that's just what we're always seeking, and I mean that's what ties to acting too. Like what's motivating you to say it in this way? What's motivating you to present in this way? And that's always the question. What's the motivation? What's behind this story? What's behind that line? Yeah, and I think a lot of great actors, if you can clock in on that, that's what really makes a performance amazing. Yeah.
And how did you start your acting journey? Because I'm getting like you read a lot of books, you're a book nerd, you would set out these sceneries, you have like all these stories in your mind, and then how did that become into the acting part?
Yeah, maybe it's a natural pipeline. I'm not really sure. And to be completely frank, like I'm still fresh as an actor, especially stateside, like I'm still new to the scene. Um, so I always loved acting, and I did a lot of theater as a kid growing up, and I'd make my own little movies and all those things. And then I went on a long hiatus where I was working primarily as a model and then radio DJ, and I did that for a long time. And then I got into commercial acting. And this is, I think, where I finally reawoke a little bit of that because commercial acting is it's stagnant in a way. It's very set, right? They have this very specific thing that they want and a specific feeling you're portraying in that moment. And you just got to hit it in your short time. And after a while, it was kind of like, but why? Why am I eating this food so deliciously? What is the reason behind this, right? And I start having these thoughts, but you don't have the space to explore all of that because commercial acting is so different. And I think that's kind of what it triggered another interest in me. Like, oh, I would really love to get back into acting because I felt it was more enriching. So I didn't really do it in Korea. I had a couple auditions here and there, but I was primarily known for modeling and commercial and voiceover work. And then when I came over stateside, I was like, all right, let's hit this. Let's do that. And my husband was really key in helping prepare me and get my portfolio together so that I could submit, get into classes. That's how I met my manager. And then that's how I met my agencies. And it's just kind of the doors opened little like that. Yeah, so it's kind of funny looking back on it, but it happened pretty naturally, I think.
So you're a DJ and a radio host,
Oh,
and you were already a people watcher at that time. So what was it like when you were a radio host and you had to talk about certain subjects, or you had guests
mhm.
and you had to interact with them, and were you like analyzing them at the same time while you were at
Oh,
work?
yeah, totally. I mean, you're probably doing this all the time also as a host. When you're interviewing people, you're kind of reading, the other person's energy, and especially with radio or especially with an audio format, people don't have time to see their expressions if they're just listening to it. So anything
Mm.
that's longer than 3 seconds break can feel so awkward, right? It's like, say something, because they can't see your face. So as a radio host, especially, right? You're on air and you want to make sure there's no dead space whatsoever. So you're constantly reading the other person and you're like, okay, I guess you're going to go here next. And this is the question I'm going to follow up with. Here's my next comment, just so that the conversation is constantly like chop, 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 chop. Um, there was one moment I remember I sang a song on air and we were live and I had my radio host and sang the song, then, it ended. And he didn't do anything. Like, he didn't clap. He didn't say, wow, that was awesome. He was just like watching me sit back down in my chair. And then I was like, all right, that was the song. And then when we went back to break, our producer tapped in and she was like, nobody can see her, so you need to say something. You have to say something on air. Like, that was awesome. Take a seat. So that's like something you learn how to do when you're working in radio and podcasting or anything interview related, right? Because you got to figure out, okay, what's my follow up? Where am I going to go from here? We have the benefit, I think, of seeing each other visually. But sometimes when it's just audio, that's the hardest part, right? That's definitely a different skill.
Hmm. For sure. Especially when there's that silence. It's like, I can't tell if they're about to talk.
Right.
It's like, should
Yes.
I talk so to try to wait? Should I wait for them?
Right, right. But I also think this is why people love listening to podcasts because it is so free flow, right? Because when people talk in real life, there are pauses. There are moments where you're just like, okay, we're gonna go with that. That's just how conversation works. So I think really nice podcasts, at least when there's really good chemistry, there's a very natural give and take, ebb
For
and flow.
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And then speaking of nice flows, vibes, I kind of want to like touch onto your DJ
Oh,
journey.
okay.
because that's like totally different from like everything else.
Yeah. Yep, totally. I'm wondering, did you hear that from Mikkel? Did he mention that?
No, I'm interested because I used to be a raver.
Oh, come on. That's so awesome.
Yeah, my
That's
rave name was Ms. Cupcake.
Here we go. Full circle. Back to the cupcakes. Okay, I understand. That's so cute. Wait, did you used to do, you know what? When we were in middle school, all the kids wanted to learn how to do like this, like,
Oh, the glove lights. Oh, I was
yeah.
not able to do that. I was not coordinating enough, but I appreciated it. Like I bought a pair of gloves and I
Hmm.
tried and I was like, it's not the same. It's not the
Right. It's
same.
not working. Yes.
And I remember like I had a lot of friends that did the glow gloves and then they will tell me that they're back hairs. So I would pack Solon-Paws like the hot strips to like
Uh-huh.
that relieves muscles. I was like, here you go. Oh, do you need help for me to put it on your back? Like I would be that person to like take care of people.
That's so fun. I heard that. So I never really got into raving or anything like that. I used to perform at some places where it would be happening, but I was never really into the community myself. But I always got the vibe that everybody was just really cool. Like people were just kind of like there for the good, the good atmosphere.
The
Is that
good
true?
vibes, man. I
Yeah.
I was really into it because someone taught me about prayer, which is like peace, love, unity, and respect. And I just
Mm.
love that concept, that philosophy. I'm like, yes, positive vibes.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of people around me that were like that. I was like, yes, I love this.
Totally. I really love that. I think that music has that really unifying ability. People are there just for the music, and we can all appreciate that at some level. Yeah, teaching. That's so funny. I really dabbled, like I just super dabbled in it, but I do think I had a natural ear, just because I always loved music. So I had like an older sister, like an 언니 in Korea, and she trained me how to DJ, and she is amazing. She is fantastic DJ, and she had just like the biggest repertoire and the greatest knowledge of what songs mixed really well together. I really admired her. And so she kind of trained me, and I would perform at like a little underground club, little bar there. And then, sometimes when she was DJing, I would sing, and we had a big performance. Our biggest one was UMF Korea, so Ultra Musical Festival, right? And that was so cool. Everybody was just dressed up, just having such a fun time. So I still remember that. It's like, wow, this is kind of like what the festival culture is like. If I ever got into EDM any further, this would be the vibe I'd want. So that was my first experience, seeing this kind of culture. But yeah, DJing is just something I liked. I always really just enjoyed it because I just think I love the music. I love to hear it in my head. And I feel like it was a way to take what was in my mind and technically bond it together, and share that with the world. I haven't DJ'd in ages. But sometimes I'll just hear a song and I'll be like, oh, you know what would match really well, right? And it's just like
Yes.
linking up in my brain. Yeah. What kind of music do you like?
I like all kinds of music. So I'm very versatile. So I my heart goes to EDM. That's like my
Mm-hmm.
go-to for a lot of stuff because they have different types of genres. So there's trance, there's dubstep, there's all kinds. It just really
Yeah.
depends on my mood. And next is alternative music. Like Mikhail and I, we had like this moment where we just like bringing up different band names and songs that we were like, oh my gosh, I totally listened to that before. Like All American Rejects or
Yeah.
Papa Roach. You're like, yeah, that was my jam. And then there's like another band that he brought up that I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that band.
Mm.
And I think it was Sum 41 or Alien Ant Farm. I was like, wow.
Somewhere
And
back there, and then came back to your
yeah.
mind.
And then there's also the other genres like pop, hip hop, and I like country too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the local music that plays a lot in
Mm.
Hawaii. So sometimes when I'm feeling like island vibes, I'm like, yes, I want to listen to this music. I don't know
Yeah.
what the band is, I don't know what the song is, but I'm gonna tune in that radio or that podcast station so I can listen to this.
Yeah. So, do you think Hawaiian music, like the local folk music, is it very widely enjoyed? Would it be considered as mainstream on the island?
Yes, for sure. It is mainstream.
Yeah.
There's these bands that everybody knows,
Yeah.
everybody loves. Everybody would want to book for like their wedding, their kid's birthday, graduation, or also these festivals, music festivals. So that's how big it is, and they have
Hmm.
it on Oahu, Maui, and even the Big Island, which is like an island that's like furthest from everybody else.
Hmm.
There's that. And the funny thing is, I kind of grew up with like old school Hawaiian music, which
Mm.
is where they're playing with a ukulele or a guitar, and there's a lot of falsetto singing. Like the men
Oh,
have like really high pitch,
yeah.
but it's like beautiful, and they're singing in Hawaiian. And I grew up with that first. And then as I got older, I got exposed more to like the reggae beats,
Mm.
like the dun 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 dun, like that
Hmm.
beat that's like in a lot of songs.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I was exposed to pop and rock, and I was like, I'm into this. I like this high beat, this heavy bass.
Yeah.
And I really like the rock music because when I got into that, it was like my adolescent time. I was like, I'm feeling this. Like,
Right. Yeah.
this is
This is
resonating
me.
with my
Yeah.
soul.
Right. Especially
Yeah,
if you start with music that's a lot different and that's what you're accustomed to as a kid, when your mind is unlocked by the melodies or the rhythms of a totally different genre, it's like tickling your brain in a new way.
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And then, so what was your interest in music? Like, what did you start with, and then what did you end up loving now?
Well, my dad always listened to like 30s, 40s, 50s. That that was the era I grew up listening to. So I listened to a lot of Glenn Miller and I listened to Duke Ellington and I listened to, Sugar Sugar and stuff like this. This is what I listened to seriously. Seriously, all the way up. Elementary, middle, and maybe high school is when I started to branch out. Then I started really digging into music. I would spend hours just going on YouTube and I would like find any random name I heard. If I would hear a song playing in the shop, I would listen, 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 write down the lyrics as fast as I could, and then look it up later because I was just so fascinated by all these different songs. And sometimes when I would watch movies, sometimes I don't even remember films I watched, but I remember the OST. And I would be like, oh my gosh, this song, they played it at this scene. That was so beautiful. I don't remember the movie name, but I remember the song, and like this is how I would grow my catalog. And so it was really eclectic. And I think what's kind of amazing now that I look back at it, all the people around me were listening to like NSYNC or Britney Spears or Backstreet Boys at a certain era, and I completely missed that. Like I wasn't tuned in on that at all. And so
What?
way later, I listened to some Britney Spears music and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I know this girl. Her song was in she was in like the Pokemon first movie OST that they released in like 99. You know what I mean? Like this is what I knew. I didn't know Britney. I didn't know who she was. And then I started going down the Britney tunnel. I was like, wow, she's amazing. And then I met my husband and he was like a super Michael Jackson fan. And I barely knew anything by Michael Jackson. And then so we spent 3 days and he was like, you need to know Michael Jackson. So we went through the whole Michael Jackson tunnel and he really opened up my eyes to a lot of different music. And then it was maybe a couple years back where I was like, Eminem is amazing. But I never listened to him growing up because my dad was like, "Oh, rap is bad." And later on in life, I was like, "Rap is amazing." And we watched a couple documentaries about hip hop and just learning about the history and the development of the music. And then this just really, I feel like my horizons really opened up dramatically in the past couple of years. I loved all kinds of music, but I think especially after meeting my husband, I grew a deeper appreciation for different genres and styles. And so I mean, if you ask me, I would still say my love remains, in like the old school crooners, classics. I still love that stuff. It really has a soft spot in my heart. But I run the whole spectrum. Definitely fell into everything. I think the one area I have not explored is country music. It's an awful bias, but I've always just been like, oh, country, I can't get into country. However, Tennessee Whiskey, you know the song Tennessee Whiskey?
Yes. Yes.
That did that did open up the doors a little bit because I was like, this song is objectively good. And then now we've yet to see. But I'm not closed off, let's put it that way.
Gee, I really like how you're explaining how you are experiencing new things and it just opens up a new world because from another perspective, someone would be like, where have you been? Under a rock? And you're like, heck yeah, I've been under a rock and now I'm living outside of a rock.
Right. Yeah, there's no shame. Like if you're exploring or discovering something new, there's no shame in being like, "Oh my gosh, I never knew this." But now you're learning it, right? Yeah, it's totally right. It is opening new doors. Absolutely, especially with music because there's so much connected to it. There's so much history and life and cultures that have to do with each genre. And so when you look into that, it's so cool. It's so fun.
The way you're explaining with the whole music thing makes me take another way to explain about like manga and anime to
Mm,
people because there is like a precognition of how people view it. And
yes.
not gonna lie, some of them do seem the same. But they look really similar to each other. And
Yeah.
then I do hear people say like, it looks like so and so. I'm like, how do I explain how amazing the story is without giving away the story?
Mm,
And the way you explain how you and your husband were sharing about music and how you explain things, how long it takes you, I'm like, okay, I can take the
hmm
approach next time. I'm like, okay, we're going to binge watch this.
You are gonna sit down and you will watch this. Yeah.
Like, here you go. Read all of these.
Right.
Here you go. I want it back by next weekend, though.
It will be fun, I promise. Right.
Yeah, like I used to do that when I was younger. I used to just like, here you go, read these volumes. Let me know
Yeah.
how it is. And afterwards, as an adult, I just feel like I have to win them over with my words. But now it's
Mm,
like, you know what? Let's go back to the basics.
mm. Yeah, you just have to experience it. There's no way you can. How do you explain to somebody Beat It by Michael Jackson with just your words? There is no way. You can't just be like, guys, this is amazing. And he did this really cool dance, and you're going to really like it. So definitely just believe you like it. You got to show them. You have to play it. And then people will be like, whoa, this really moves me. And then your whole life is transformed. And that's just how it is with art and music.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So for social media,
Hmm.
I can get lost in it, especially with Instagram, with Reels, and people are just making little shorts or videos with like music that like bring me back to the days. Like, this is okay to talk about this. I saw this reel where I forget what was the song. I think it was from what's that song where it's like it's get low, get low to the windows, to the
Oh, to
wall.
the walls. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the background music. And there was a mom that was trying to get her kid to take medicine. So she had like, okay, you're gonna take this medicine, and she had like a bottle of orange juice, and you're gonna take this really quick, and
Uh-huh.
it's called a chaser. And
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh.
but
Yeah.
what hooked me was the music. I was like, yeah, I am jamming to this. This is like bringing me back to those
Yeah.
days.
Totally.
So
That
have you found yourself getting lost in social media like Instagram with stuff like that, with the music and such?
Yeah, music, I mean, is the fastest hook, I think, in terms of capturing someone's attention. And it can make a video or ruin a video, right? Like if you have the right music or the wrong music. So that's always a great touch if somebody has that musical sense. Um, yeah, but it's funny. Oftentimes, I prefer reading over watching things. So I'm a little bit more into threads these days, I think, than
Ooh.
reels. Yeah, because I'm just like reading little stories and then I kind of go through it. Sometimes I feel like when I'm watching the reels, it's just like sucking my brain out. So I've stopped trying to consume that as much. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't quite, I don't think I've gotten like sucked into it due to the music specifically. I think just part of it is the way social media is, right? Like how it just catches your brain. So I'm trying to stay away from that. But I should probably cut out threads too, now that I think about it.
What? I could totally picture you loving Reddit.
I love Reddit.
Oh, you
I
already do?
love Reddit. This is so awful. You know, like even if I look up things online, sometimes I'll be like, like if I have a question that I want to ask Google, I'll put Reddit at the end of it so that I go into Reddit boards first to read about it. Ah, it's a problem. Yeah, but I do enjoy Reddit. Absolutely.
Wow.
Have you
So
noticed, actually, just really fast, have you ever done a comparison between what is being shown on Reddit and what is being shown on Instagram? Have you ever done that?
I have not done that yet.
Like, to give a good example, Meghan Markle, right? Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, she released her TV show. If I went on the Reddit boards, people are like, wow, this is really nice. You know, she did a great job. Oh, a surprise, pleasant. I enjoyed watching it. And then you went on Instagram, and everyone's like, she's evil. We hate her. This is the worst show ever. It's just so bizarre to see like the different things that you see happening on different social medias, you know?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That this is making me want to go into Reddit more because I haven't really dived into it yet. Like, I made an account. I
Yeah.
tried to navigate through it. I kind of got lost. And then I was like, you know what? I'll get back to this. And I have Mekel over here that's like, keep going to Reddit. He's like, oh my gosh, I saw this. I read this.
I
I'm
would
like,
see him as a Reddit guy.
I
Yeah.
am envying this. And with you just kind of explaining the comparison, like, I think I want to go on Reddit more because it sounds more positive. I'm getting really tired of like the negativity and the hateration. I'm like, can anybody just be happy?
Well, don't get me wrong. Reddit has their fair share of haters. This is why, like, all social media should be taken with a grain of salt, right? Because it'll never be real life. That is for sure. But I think Reddit can be pretty fun, to be honest. Like, I guess it's more conversational than what Instagram has kind of turned into. Instagram is more like, look at me, look at my reel. Okay, comment, even if they're not actually creating a dialogue. Reddit, to some extent, still, you know, it's about a conversation, ultimately.
Yeah, when I first saw Reddit, it totally brought me back to the days where, was it chat boards where you put out like a subject and then people just like comment on it and you can have like conversations and but
Yeah,
someone had to start that conversation first and anybody could join. So it kind of
right.
reminded me of that and I was like, oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, back to like a kind of original forum idea, like just the way it should have been. But I'm not saying online is the perfect forum, but just this, you know, you're talking with people who have a similar interest as opposed to just random people passing by and leaving a comment, you know? So at least we're kind of on the same boat here.
For sure. So where can people find you on social
Hmm.
media?
Yeah, I mean, despite what I might say about social media, it is a necessary evil, and I do enjoy it still. So you can find me there on my Instagram at RebeccaRose.official. That's the same on my TikTok, and then I do have a Twitter account. It's hey_Rebecca Rose. I opened that primarily because there were a lot of Mai Shiranui fans when the character was released. And I was like, you know what? I just want to reach out to people. I just want to see what's happening in the community. And I found that Twitter was really active for a lot of gamers and people who were into those video games. So I opened that account. So you can find me there as well. Also, threads, RebeccaRose.official. It's kind of across the board. Um, yeah, it's probably the best way to get in touch.
Nice. And you just open one of those accounts just so you can be reach so you can reach out to the community and they could connect with you. That's amazing.
Yeah, I really wanted to do that. Like, I just felt like I knew people loved the game and I knew people loved the character. And I was like, you know, I was very not into Twitter. I never had an account or anything. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just try. Let's just see what's out there. And people were there and there was a lot of activity and just so much conversation and it was just really fun. I think to tap into that and just be connected with people who love the same things that I loved and who appreciated my work, that really meant a lot. So, yeah, Twitter can definitely be a cesspool. But if you find a good community, right, and you're using it for a good purpose,
For
it can be
sure.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, like with a lot of social media, there is an algorithm. It's pretty much based on what you're looking at.
Right.
So if you don't want to be in that type of energy, you can be like, okay, let's just take different choices
Yes.
and look at different things and interact with different people, different accounts, so
Right.
we can get the algorithm we want.
Right. You have power to control not everything, but a lot of what's coming into your eyes, so you
Mhm.
can figure that out. And just don't get tricked by the algorithm, basically. Don't let them fool you.
For sure. Like I loved having you on Paul. Like talking to you. We like talked about so many different things,
I
like
know.
high school, reading books, Harry Potter, Disneyland, music, like all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah. It was so awesome. Seriously. This has been so much fun. And I just love that, like, we could just talk about anything. I thought that was really great. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Mahalo nui loa from Podcasts Across Worlds with like all your social media. I'll make sure to have that in the description so everybody would be able to know where to follow you, interact with you if
Awesome.
they can. And other than that, we deeply appreciate you being Mai. Like it's so exciting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because she is a iconic character, and we're very excited to see any other characters that you'll be voicing in the future. Like, we're going to keep our eyes out on our
Oh,
ears,
okay.
keep our ears out for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope I have good news to share with people soon. If there's a new character or some project that I'm being a part of, you can definitely see it on my social media. I'll be sharing it there for sure.
Yes. And everybody else, be sure to follow Rebecca and all those social media that she just mentioned. It'll be in the description below. And other than that, keep reading manga, keep watching anime, and keep listening to podcasts across worlds. We'll see you on the next one. Ah, hui ho.
Thank you for listening to Podcasts Across Worlds. This is a passion project that was created by Lehua Superfina and is co-hosted by myself, Mekel Kasanova. If you enjoyed this episode and any of the topics that we talk about, or any of the guests and voice actors and various people we have on the show, then make sure you do us a solid by, if you're watching it on YouTube, which is on youtube.com/Lehua Superfina, then make sure you like the video, share it around with someone you think would enjoy it, as well as leave a comment on what you think could be improved, or what you liked, what you didn't like, and all that in between. If you're listening to the show on any of the major podcasting outlets such as Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or any of the others, then make sure you leave a rating, leave a comment, interact with the polls that we put out, and so much more. If you want to support the show, we do have Patreon, as well as many other methods for supporting. And with that being said, we're signing out. We hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Keep listening, keep watching, and keep enjoying podcasts across worlds. We'll see you around.